We found out about an hour after he was born that he had Down syndrome. The midwives, first of all, when he was delivered, they did their tests and then handed him to us and said, we were a little bit concerned about his eyes and his neck, so we're just calling a paediatrician. So a paediatrician was called in, and I remember then sending my partner over to find out what was going on, and I could hear in the background Down syndrome being mentioned, and that's when I first found out about it. And then the consultant, apparently he left the room, I don't remember that, but he left the room and then came back and told me that Cathal had Down syndrome. I knew absolutely nothing about Down syndrome. All I knew was that our life just wasn't going to be the same again. And it's strange because I had this, before he was born, we had this vision of him growing up and being somebody great, like an architect or a doctor, and the usual kind of dreams. And as soon as I was told he had Down syndrome, I just saw all of that crashing down in front of me, and I just didn't know what was going to happen, what the future would hold at all. So it was a huge shock. I suppose they didn't have time to give us any information, and then once we were up in Crumlin Hospital, they were more concerned about his cardiac condition rather than him having Down syndrome. So again, it was probably a week and a half before somebody kind of asked us if we needed any information. And at that stage we'd already sourced our own information from a work colleague of mine who has a child with Down syndrome, and from Down Syndrome Ireland website. So that's where we got all our information from in the early days. We just had to go ahead and research everything ourselves, what entitlements, what the future would hold for Cathal, and then when you're left with the internet and everything that's on it, it's very difficult to pick and choose what's the best information to be looking at. And so a lot of the articles you read are very doom and gloom, and there's no hope. But at least if there had been a liaison nurse who came to visit us a few days after he was born, I think it would have been a much more positive experience. Definitely is a very positive event. You don't know what any child is capable of until they develop and they start growing up and they get older. So a child with Down syndrome is absolutely no different. We don't know what he's going to do in the future. He's hopefully going to go on to mainstream school and do his leaving cert and go to college. We've high hopes for him. I mean, I'm changing the locks once he turns 18. He's out of the house, that's it. He's not going to be treated any differently to any of our future children. So that's it, he'll just have to get used to it. But I think that's the attitude that new parents should have, is that anything is possible for any child, whether they have Down syndrome or not. Yeah, absolutely. And any new parent should jump at the chance of having a liaison nurse, someone who they can call any time during the week and ask, listen, what do I do now? that would be such a huge support here. There was nothing there when Cathal was born. Our public health nurse really didn't know anything. There was nobody who was a specialist in Down syndrome who could tell you where you go next. And to have that support would be absolutely amazing, I think, and any new parent should avail of it, without a doubt.